Welcome back to Fantasy Football Today. I'm Jamie, that's Dave, that's Heath. We're looking at the sits for Week 13, and Dave, we'll start with your list, which has a couple of big-name players on it, notably Alvin Kamara, who headlines the three running backs that you're looking to avoid, along with Jeff Wilson and Antonio Gibson. You also have Adam Thielen and Alan Lazard. So you're actually going to sit Alvin Kamara for Week 13, taking on the Bucs.
I'm working on getting him out of my top 24 in full PPR. That's how much I'm against Alvin Kamara. And I'm a coward because if I had said this 2 or 3 weeks ago, I would have looked a lot better. He's had 12 or fewer PPR points in each of his past 4 games. He has 3 runs in his past 4 games, Jamie, of 10 or more yards. That Saints offensive line is bad. They're missing center Eric McCoy. That's a big loss for them. Only 3 running backs have had 90-plus total yards against Tampa this year. Only 4 running backs have run for a touchdown on the Bucs this year. I think this is another bad outing for A to the K. If you start him, have middling number 2 running back expectations.
So he'll be lower than 19 for you?
He will be lower than 19.
All right, so give me the backup options. Would you start Zonovan Knight ahead of
I'm going to get
Kamara?
to that point, I think. In non-PPR, it's a no-brainer for me to go that route. In full PPR, it's a little bit tougher, but I am encouraged by what Zonovan Knight can do for the Jets if Michael Carter is out.
Jalen Warren or Alvin Kamara?
I'll go Kamara over Warren. I'm not as excited about Warren as you guys are. I'm excited. I like him as a flex. Just can't do it over Kamara.
Okay, Heath, you going to change your tune on Kamara too, or are you just going to keep him this way?
I don't like him at all. But I do think in full PPR, getting him outside the top 20 is very
6
difficult.
catches last week. It's hard to get away.
I mean,
with.
that's what you're hoping for.
The
He's
week
gotta do
before, he was like RB17 on the week. So I just think he's probably going to finish as the top 20 running back, even if he's awful.
And for what it's worth, Vita Vea did not practice on Thursday, so just something to keep an eye on there. That run defense would look dramatically different if Vea is not there
that would
for
change
the
things.
Bucs. Jeff Wilson has been very good. He was a little disappointing at the start of the week last week, but has been a very good fantasy option since going to Miami. Heath, you're still very optimistic on him. Dave, not so much.
He didn't look like the same guy that we saw last week. And that had nothing to do with the fact that he didn't play a full game. Neither did most of the starters for the Dolphins. But he only had 3 runs longer than 3 yards. He had no runs of 10-plus yards. It sounds like Raheem Mostert will be back too. And he's playing the 49ers. They just made Alvin Kamara look horrible. Only 4 running backs have had 10 or more non-PPR points against them. Only 2 have had 15 or more PPR points. I'll go with Gus Edwards. I'll go with Jamal Williams. I'll go with Ezekiel Elliott, all ahead of him.
I will just say it, we're not ranking Raheem Mostert right now. If we rank Raheem Mostert, that's about where I would have Jeff Wilson, around RB26.
To be honest, Raheem Mostert could come back without Teron Armstead there. That's the biggest concern for me. If he's not playing, which is the expectation, left tackle, it's going to be, I think, very ugly for the Dolphins' offense, potentially for Tua Tagovailoa as well. So it could be bad news for Jeff Wilson and Mostert in their revenge game going back to San Francisco. Heath, the sits for you. You got somebody else in the Saints-Bucs game. You got Tom Brady as a sit, Russell Wilson as well, Dameon Pierce, Isaiah Pacheco, and Chris Olave. So, again, a couple headliners here. We'll talk about Dameon Pierce because it's been a tough goal for him the last couple weeks, but the matchup is so good against the Browns. You're not buying it, though.
The matchup is so good, and he's run for 16 yards on his last 15 carries. I don't have any confidence at all in him or this offensive line. I don't know that they can generate push. He's talking openly about how teams are daring them to beat them with the pass. And newsflash, the Texans can't beat anyone with the pass. So I'm afraid it's a complete disaster. In non-PPR, I could understand if you get stuck starting him at RB25. That's not a must sit, but I would like to get away from him. I would definitely start Alvin Kamara over him in full PPR.
I wonder if there'll be more reception opportunities, more catching opportunities with Rex Burkhead in the concussion protocol. It also feels like if there's ever a game that they're going to sell out for, it's the one facing Deshaun Watson. They could still win this game, still keep the number 1 spot in the NFL draft, which right now they're 2 games in front of everybody else in terms of holding the number 1 selection. So sell out, go YOLO. Dameon Pierce is your best player. I find it hard to get completely away from him, and obviously you're not getting completely away from him as a flex option.
If the Browns dare the Texans to run, do the Texans just shrug their shoulders and say, "Okay, we're going to do it"? Like that's how bad the Browns' run defense has been.
It's awful, but I mean he's had epically miserable performances the last 2 weeks.
I know. So I've got him in my league.
Hopefully he bounces back.
I want to poke my eyes out.
Chris Olave, I'm surprised you're sitting him because the last time these 2 teams faced, now granted it was a different quarterback, but he did have a huge game, 13 targets from Jameis Winston. And the way to beat this team clearly is to throw against them, not to run. So you're a little bit concerned about Chris Olave performing at a high level.
I'm concerned about a lot of offensive players in this game. I think it's going to be a low-scoring, ugly game. I think the defense is probably win on both sides, and we've seen 2 of his last 3 games. He's had 5 or 6 targets. The production with Andy Dalton has not been as great as it was with Jameis Winston. There's not as many downfield throws there. So he's a number 3 wide receiver. He does have a lot of upside, but I don't think his floor is very good this week.
It's going to be interesting to see how the game goes. I like players like this in primetime opportunities. I think, again, the weakness of the Bucs is in their secondary. Antoine Winfield's a little bit banged up, so we'll see what that matters there as well. And so hopefully we get just more targets for Chris Olave, who's been better more times than not. And again, had a big game against them in the first meeting in week 2, but that was what was with Jameis Winston. Sits for me for this week. You got Kirk Cousins. I just don't trust him against that Jets defense. Cordero Patterson, I don't trust him at all. Latavius Murray, good luck. Traylon Burks, good luck. And Cortland Sutton, good luck. Taking on Marlon Humphrey. We'll start with Patterson here, who has been largely disappointing since coming back from his knee injury. He had a 2-touchdown game in his first outing, but the workload has just been too chopped up to begin with Tyler Algier. I think this offensive line is going to struggle against the Steelers. I think the entire offense for the Falcons is going to struggle against the Steelers. I think Pittsburgh's defense is just too good. And so Cordero Patterson is someone I'm looking to avoid. But Dave, you're a little bit more optimistic.
Atlanta's committed to the run. They're going to
Not
use
with
him
him,
some
though.
more.
That's the problem.
Yeah, it's true. Although his playing time has started to go up over the past couple of weeks since he's come back. If you start him, you're hoping he scores. Bottom of the barrel, number 2 fantasy running back for me.
Okay, so are you gonna start him or Alvin Kamara?
Kamara for now. In PPR, I've got to go with Kamara over Cordero Patterson.
Okay, so you're not going that low yet. All right, and then Cortland Sutton, look, he's been 12 or 13 PPR points basically every game Jerry Jeudy has missed. But now he's going to take on Marlon Humphrey, and that's going to be a very, very tall task. He just eliminated Christian Kirk last week. Number 1 receivers really have struggled against Baltimore almost the entire season. So Sutton, while he's still a good number 3 receiver, I just can't trust him in this matchup. And he doesn't score, which he has only done once. It's going to be a little, only once since, he has not scored since week 4, going to be tough for him taking on this Baltimore secondary. All right, that'll do it for our starts and sits for week 13. You can check out a lot of our content on CBSSports.com with our starts and sits and other suggestions along the way of that categories as well. So check it out, CBSSports.com. All right, we're going to take a break right now. We're going to tease you with this question going into the break. Jets or Bills defense, and should I sit or drop Alvin Kamara or Dameon Pierce and grab Elijah Moore for flex? No, don't do that. But we'll give you a little bit more in depth on that question next after the break. Welcome back to Fantasy Football Today. A couple practice reports for you before we get to some Ask FFT questions. Jerick McKinnon and Kadarius Toney are not expected to practice on Thursday, so it could be good for Isaiah Pacheco, maybe even Melvin Gordon if McKinnon can't go. Toney, obviously Sky Moore is in a good spot as well. Trevor Siemian not going to practice for the Bears on Thursday, and Justin Fields expected to be limited once again. And Antonio Gibson not going to practice for the Commanders, so keep that in mind if you have Brian Robinson. Could be an even better opportunity for him taking on the Giants.